This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
You are listening to the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, part of the CLNS Media Network. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Prizepicks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prizepicks app today and use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, mandatory minicamp in the books. Before we get to said minicamp, I want to ask you, Greg, about Stefon Diggs, because Diggs had the first opportunity he's had to speak with the media. He did so yesterday. He did not have a lot to say regarding the boat, quote-unquote, incident and what was in the quote-unquote bag. Just your thoughts about Diggs' approach with you guys yesterday after practice.
Yeah, Nick, it wasn't a big surprise the way he handled things, especially, listening to Giardi, who has spent, in his time at NFL Network, spent a lot of time in Buffalo and dealing with Diggs and all that. What we saw the other day was sort of par for the course for him, where, I don't now look, it's not really important what he says to us. It's important what he says to Mike Vrabel. And he wasn't going to discuss any of that. But as far as public accountability, I don't think, I didn't love it from Diggs. I mean, I would have liked to have heard him just say something along the lines of, look, I understand that my actions did not reflect greatly on the Patriots, my teammates, myself. For that, I apologize. It won't happen again. Something along those lines. I mean, he just sort of like shut everything down and just said, it's personal and I'm not going to get into it. But what he said, it wasn't bad. I personally would have liked a little bit more in a way of accountability and an apology, but I mean, at least he addressed it and he faced the questions and he wasn't a dink about it, where, he could have been. So, I give him a solid like C plus as far as his answers to the party boat and all that. So, I'm okay with it.
We're mostly on the same page. I think he could have certainly been more contrite. And, you could show that contrition and accountability without getting into the details. There is a way to do that. And he knows how to do that because he's been around long enough. He's been in the league long enough and has faced enough questions about certain things. So he knows how to dance around certain topics, but still show responsibility, accountability if he wanted to do that. I also just wonder, that conversation with Vrabel that he had, and he also mentioned people in the building. I don't know if he's talking about front office, ownership, both. I don't know. But his conversations extended beyond the head coach. He said that yesterday. And I wonder if, look, he might have handled this the same way as he handled it yesterday, because as you mentioned, Giardi and what he has had to say with Diggs and how he has handled things in the past. So maybe it wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe it wouldn't have changed any of the math. But I do wonder if Vrabel said something along the lines of like, look, there's no need to get into the details. Like there's no need to go out there and we want to put this thing to bed. Like this isn't a rearview mirror. If you go out there and you give details or you try to defend yourself in any way, it's going to just continue to drag on. It's going to continue to be a distraction. So just move on from it. Like don't say the least that you can say. I would not doubt that Vrabel, is perfectly fine with what Diggs said because of that reason. If Diggs goes out there and says, yes, what you thought was in the bag was in the bag, and this is what happened, and that's what happened, that's going to lead to more questions for Vrabel. It's going to lead to more questions for everybody else. So I don't think they had an issue with him just kind of, let's move forward. That's my personal life, not going to address it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that, Vrabel knows that he knows the Boston media. He knows, how things can get amplified. And I think he really I think he wanted Diggs to address it, say as little as possible, get it out of the way, and so everybody can move on.
All right, let's move on. Mike Vrabel. He was asked about Marte Mapu. Just wanted to ask you this. He was asked, Mapu's moved to linebacker. Is that where you see him? He said, we're not going to waste his time, which is, yes, we're putting him there for a reason. Was Mapu back at practice yesterday? And just overall, from OTAs to this current moment, how has he looked playing at linebacker, Greg?
So he was at practice, but again, just watching. He didn't really do much of anything. In fact, I didn't even see him out there during like jog throughs and things like that, where, like for example, on the offensive line, like you get, Michael Wenu is out there and, and Morgan Moses is out there, even though he does take part in team on a limited basis. Mapu is not out there for, jog throughs with the defense. So it's hard to tell. When he's been out there, he's looked all right. I like his length. I like his speed. Vrabel said basically the same sort of thing, where he said he's got a unique skill set. He's got good size, good length. He's a good blitzer. So we thought that could help him and obviously try to help us. He also, when Vrabel, I don't know how you took it, Nick, but I took it as a very sort of tepid endorsement of Mapu. It was sort of like, when he says just trying to find some versatility for him, like, we don't really think he's a safety. We're trying him at linebacker. Not really optimistic about his future here, but we're going to try some things, see what it looks like, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, compare the answers from Vrabel about somebody like Mapu and like Peppers or Pop Douglas, where Vrabel has certainly, I wouldn't say praised Pop Douglas and Peppers, but he has certainly complimented those two guys. That wasn't really the case with Mapu yesterday. Let's stick on that side of the football. Keion White, he opened some eyes when he met with you guys. He talked about training himself, and now, compared to the prior couple of years, now he feels like he has a coach. Do you think that's fair or unfair from Keion White?
That's a good question. And we sort of heard some of this rumbling out of Keion White towards the end of last season, where it was obvious he was not happy with the situation, what was going on the team, what was going on in the defense, and how he was being coached. Hard for me to say whether it's fair or not. I mean, look, if Keion White feels that way, and he talks about how, like, Mike Smith, who is his new position coach, who, has a lot of experience. I was just looking it up. Like, he's a former NFL player, with the Ravens, but he's been with the Chiefs, the Packers, the Vikings before this as sort of outside linebackers, pass rush specialist type of guy. That Keion White says that I'm paraphrasing here, but it basically sounds like he's learned more from Mike Smith in terms of technique and mentality and what to look for and all that than he has in his previous years with the Patriots. I mean, he did say something about Belichick. He was complimentary about him. But certainly last year, Keion White at least feels like he didn't get much coaching, did not get the opportunity to improve like he wanted to, and blames the coaches. So if he feels that way, it's hard for me to argue with it.
And he's also true to himself. Keion White strikes me as somebody like you can love or hate what he has to say, but he's going to be pretty frank, and he's not going to have much of an issue.
No bullshit, man.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Bullshit.
Exactly. That's kind of how he rolls. And I would think that Vrabel actually really likes that about Keion White. I would think that he loves Keion White's work ethic and his no-nonsense approach to things. I would just have to imagine Vrabel appreciates that. So not surprised that White would be the guy that says something like he said. Has he looked better, Greg? Do you think he looks like a guy who is being coached better and he's more of an impact guy, practice to practice?
Absolutely. I think he's looked terrific. I like how they're sort of using his versatility, and we sort of saw it in the practice yesterday where, after a couple of practices that we saw where the offense was sort of having its way with the defense, at least efficiency-wise. Yesterday, the defense really stepped it up in terms of their pre-snap looks along the lines in terms of pass rush, but also pass coverage, and then post-snap looks. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on yesterday. And to me, Nick, it looks like Keion White is a featured part of this defense, that they think they have something that he can, he's playing a lot on the edge, playing a lot on his feet on the edge, but then you will also see him, lined up over the football and all sorts of different alignments. So I think Keion White looks terrific. I think that I feel bad for these guys and him and Milton Williams, who, talked the other day, and he sounded like, frustrated with, this being a passing camp and they can't do much. And basically he wants to get to the training camp and hit somebody. And I think Keion White's the same way, where you're watching and you're like, these guys have to pull up so much that it's probably driving them crazy. But I think Keion White has looked terrific so far. And I can't wait to see, once they get the pads on and he can do a few more things, and including, one-on-ones and all that. Like, I think he's headed for a beast of a season.
It's exciting to think about White, Williams, and Barmore and what they are going to be capable of doing if they can stay healthy within this defensive scheme and with this coaching staff. All right, one more thing I wanted to ask you about before we get to the practices overall is Wes Schweitzer. We found out yesterday, Greg, that Schweitzer has retired. He was taking part in a lot of, relatively speaking, a lot of snaps at left guard. It was mostly, Strange and him splitting a lot of work there. How does this impact? First of all, are you surprised that Schweitzer's done? Secondly, how does this impact not only the left guard spot, but the domino effect across the offensive line?
Yeah, I'm mildly surprised. I mean, look, these things, seem to happen a lot with the Patriots, with some of these journeyman types, whether it's like Riley Reef or, a Okorafor last year. Like, I think, Eric Decker and like Demaryius Thomas weren't too far off from retiring after, being with the Patriots for a little bit. But I was mildly surprised. I don't really know Wes Schweitzer, all that well. Studied him a little bit. Definitely a journeyman, sort of like league average backup type of guy. And I think they signed him just to get an experienced body in there. From all accounts, from talking to people around the team, really good guy, was doing a decent job in practice. So, from that respect, it was a mild surprise. You never know with these guys why they do things. But I will say, yeah, I was hoping that Wes Schweitzer wasn't going to be much of a factor when it comes to left guard at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, the ranks are pretty thin at guard. I think, I think we're looking at a wide open competition. No change from where we were when the offseason started. We talked about left guard. It was going to be wide open. I would say that Cole Strange is probably the favorite right now. Jared Wilson is the X factor. Where does he overtake Garrett Bradbury at center, and he's the starting center? Does Bradbury do a good job, and that frees up Jared Wilson to get in the mix at left guard? I know he is going to be in the mix, but he's been so limited this offseason, we haven't really been able to see anything. I think that Layden Robinson's a guy who is, well down the depth chart right now. City So got a lot of run. He looks like he's on the upswing a little bit in terms of how the team views him and also how he was playing. Again, hard to judge at these practices, but a little very surprised that Caden Wallace got snaps at left guard, but I think that's the situation that they were in. I expect the Patriots to add more at the position. I think they did sign somebody. They had a couple tryout guys in, and then at the last practice, there was a uniform number that I did not know, wasn't on my roster. So yeah, let's just say that left guard is in flux.
Any word on Jared Wilson? I mean, obviously Vrabel's not going to say anything, but have you heard anything? He hasn't been out there since like the first OTA practice, correct?
Yes. I don't know. I can't tell you, Nick, off the top of my head, whether he's participated in any team periods at all during the offseason. I don't think he has. I think he's been on this path the whole time. I don't know much about what's going on with him, but I do know that they're really happy with him inside the building. He's known to be extremely smart. They have high hopes for him. It's just a matter of where and when he's going to play. Oh, it said he missed. Maybe that was 2004, but he had some sort of foot injury at Georgia. So I don't know. He probably had to get something taken care of.
All right, let's talk about Prizepicks for a minute.
Prizepicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. They have a special going on, and it is for the OKC team tonight. You have there's a free square. It launched today, Wednesday. It'll be for Jalen Williams from the OKC team to score 1 point to cash that pick. So basically, they're giving you a free square. So you're on your way to winning money. To win any money, you just need to pick one more player, more or less any of the stats, and you will cash in. The basketball players are going on. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prizepicks lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, and assists. Take your pick or more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Don't miss your chance to add favorite players from the ice as well in your Prizepicks lineup, whether it's goals, points, or hits. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. I think Connor McDavid will get more than one goal this week, or Brad Marchand will get more than 2 penalty minutes. Cook up your hot takes with friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on Prizepicks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game.
And for those listening, we ask you subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. Patriots wrapped up their offseason practices before getting to camp in late July. I believe it's July 23rd was announced yesterday. Were you surprised at all, Greg, that Vrabel didn't go full bore with this third minicamp practice today?
A little bit. No, actually, no, not really. They all seem to do it these days. Even Bill Belichick, they'd punt it for like a team building activity. I don't know what the Patriots are doing exactly. I thought I heard Vrabel say something about they might be doing some sort of charity thing or something. I'm not sure. But no, I think they've got a lot of work in. I will say these guys in their practices, like they work hard. They go all out for about 2 hours, and not a lot of stoppages. I think they checked all the boxes. I think they have a good foundation on both sides of the ball for what they want to do. So, give the guys a little something, give them a little time off. I'm okay with it.
From OTA practice number 1 that you saw to yesterday's minicamp practice, what's the big picture takeaway? Is it the crispness of the practice? Is it the level of certain players? Is it something with the coaching staff? What is the biggest takeaway for Greg Bedard?
I would say, Nick, that it's just, and this is just through my eyes and what I remember about, the previous years, or for a certain player, or, where they were coming out in the draft for the younger players. I just see a team where I see a lot of players that are improving. Might not be a lot, might be a little, but I look at everybody just especially from the start of OTAs to now. I think I see just a lot of improvement across the board. I mean, even a guy like, let's take, for example, Jalen Polk, who has not been taking part in team, but he does an individual and he does some jog through stuff. like I see a difference in the way that he's running routes and his, confidence, decisiveness at how he's doing things, his technique, sticking a foot in the ground and doing things. When he's getting an opportunity in these jog throughs, he is getting the ball a lot from Drake Maye. So I just see, across the board, I just see improvement, confidence growing. We sort of talked about it last podcast, but this week, especially, Nick, when I've left the practices, like I've been happy, upbeat, because it just looks like a professional football team and how they do things. I mean, here's a little thing that warms my heart as sort of a youth coach, and I believe in certain things, like just the way these guys just the way these guys break the huddle, Nick, on both sides of the ball. It's a very little thing, but I noticed it the other day. So the offense, they'll be in the huddle, and the offensive line and like the tight ends, if they're in line blocking or what have you, lining up on the line on that play, like they haul ass to the line and they get right to the line. They're ready to go. On defense, before a series starts, there's sort of like a huddle of the defense between the sideline and where the football is marked. And they'll meet over there. They'll break the huddle, and these guys haul ass to where they're supposed to be. And on both sides of the ball, they know where they're supposed to be. Like there's no, like I said this last time, there's no guy pointing, being like, you're in the wrong spot, get on the other side. Like they know what the hell they're doing. And every practice, it seems like they play a little bit faster. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I don't mind. I don't want to be this very optimistic guy. That's not who I am. But every time I watch these guys, every practice, the improvement, I get a little bit excited. I mean, they look like a professional outfit.
Greg is proud of the team. He's disappointed in himself is the takeaway. Mm-hmm. So the first minicamp practice we talked about, Drake Maye was really good. He was sharp. Offense was really good. Yesterday, the defense strike back a little bit. Yeah,
definitely. And I don't know how much of it was by design. It was an interesting practice where they had so like the other practices we talked about, there's basically like 4 team periods, and the first 2 team periods were silent count. They had the music way jacked up. Maye's, motioning things, calling things out. And again, these guys knew what they were doing. It made it tough on them. There were like some false starts and things like that. And then, in the red zone, they had 2 red zone periods, but the defense was much more active today than it has been. Like they, like I said, a lot of guys up on the line of scrimmage, guys dropping out, some guys coming. There were some free rushers. There were some coverage sacks. The defense was definitely like a lot more aggressive and having a lot more fun, which made it tougher on the offense. But still, I mean, I thought the offense did a good job. I mean, I had Drake Maye and Josh Dobbs overall were 9 of 14. That's pretty good when, you don't really have you don't have a lot of starters who are working, whether it's on the offensive line or like, you don't have a Stefon Diggs and things like that. So, I was pretty impressed with how the offense did, how they operated. But the defense was definitely good.
Are we learning that when Vrabel does these press conferences, this is how I kind of take it, he's actually pretty open given the circumstances of going into a practice, and he doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but he lets all of you know, hey, look, this is what's going on. And yesterday was another example of that, when before the practice, he told you guys in the media, yeah, we're going to work on, silent count, silent cadence, and we're going to deal with a lot of different, situational things today. It seems like Vrabel's pretty upfront about, we're gonna shift some things today, and almost warns you guys so you don't take too much out of a bad practice or a great practice. Am I reading that right? Is he trying to send a message to you to say, look, let's not get too high. Let's not get too low. Let's not report things out there and get the fans all pumped and jacked or angry, because we're working on a lot of different things.
Yeah, I would say that's fair, and I think Mike's done a good job of that, is sort of giving us a little bit of breadcrumbs on what we're about to see, and I appreciate it, because that allows us to give context to what's going on, because right. What happens as soon as practice ends, stats start getting tweeted out. Talk radio hosts take said stats and blow it up in a certain way. We try to give context. Whether people want to listen to it, especially talk radio hosts, that's something altogether different. But yeah, I appreciate that from Vrabel, because any context that he can give us helps us to report more fairly and accurately, and allows fans to have a more accurate picture of their football team.
I want to talk about that. I want to drill down on that, because I think you have a perfect example from yesterday's practice, where if you're just looking at the stats, you see that Drake Maye threw an interception, and it was his first interception since the first OTA practice. And you might say, oh, well, Drake made a huge mistake, and but you want to know the context. And the context was Christian Gonzalez, Greg, I saw you write it, just made a spectacular play, correct?
Yeah. And, the Patriots have posted a video since then from the other side of the field from where I was standing. Now, it's tough enough with the regular practices outside, but at least on the hill, I have a better angle, and I have binoculars, and like I can tell a few more things on a play. We were inside because of the rain, and so we're just on like one sideline, so I couldn't even see Will Campbell's side of the field almost the entire practice. I got a good look at the right tackles almost the whole practice. Not a great day for DeMontre Jacobs, by the way. But that play, Drake was trying to throw to Kyle Williams. It was right on the sideline by us. To me, in the moment, it didn't look like it certainly wasn't a bad read. It didn't look like a bad throw. Now, on the video that the Patriots have posted, it does look like a little bit of an overthrow. Christian Gonzalez did make a ridiculous catch, like one-handed type of thing. I definitely remember that. Now, it's also hard to tell in the video, like, if I'm guessing, Kyle Williams didn't exactly do what he was supposed to do. Maybe, because Gonzalez was on top of him, he, kind of shut it down, didn't fight through where Drake. But I don't have a problem with Drake Maye giving a young kid a chance on a 50-50 ball to make it. Could the throw have been a little bit better? Yeah, maybe. But I also think that Kyle Williams sort of dialed it down a little bit, because Gonzalez was all over him. But still, I don't have a huge problem with the interception. And let me also say this. And I'm sure we've talked about this before, I don't care if guys throw interceptions in practice. Like, I don't want them to be, 90% completions on, just little dinks and dunks.
Right.
Like, I want the players to try different things in practice. Where I remember having this conversation with Aaron Rodgers back when I was covering him when he was first, taking over for Brett Favre. And I remember his first training camp practice, he was extremely conservative. And that's all he sort of did during the season. Then the next training camp, like, he and I had a long conversation about, like, he was trying new things to see what he was capable of and what also his teammates were capable of. And he threw some more interceptions, but that's how you learn. And so if Drake Maye throws interceptions, like, I don't really care. It's to me, it's about the context and what they're working on.
I want to ask you about Gonzalez, because from what I have read, dude has been an absolute stud during the last month or so. Devin McCourty on the Forged in Foxborough episode 1 said, I don't know if he said Gonzo will be or could be or should be. I think he said Gonzo will be the top corner in the NFL this year. Do you think that's within his reach? Do you think Gonzalez has the chance to be the top corner in football in 2025?
It's a good question, Nick. I think he'll be in the conversation. He had a lot of good play last year. He also had some choppy play at times last year. I definitely want to see his improvement. To me, he looks stronger physically, that he's added some muscle to his frame. So that's been really good. His ball skills, to me, are ridiculous. That interception being an example of it. It's going to be interesting to see how they distribute things in terms of him and Carlton Davis, who's going to guard, which type of player. Pretty sure I saw Carlton Davis take a couple snaps, in the slot the other day. But yeah, I think he'll be in the mix. And if he learns and these coaches are as good as I think they are, then I do think he has a chance. I'm not ready to predict that for him, but he's on that trajectory.
And let's not forget, he was a second-team All-Pro last year, and he's only played, I think it's 20 games in his NFL career because he missed the vast majority of his rookie season. It's kind of bananas to think about. He's nowhere close of getting 2 full years of actually on-field time when games count at the NFL level, and he's already where he is. I mean, he absolutely has just insane potential. All right, before we get to a couple of players I wanted to ask Greg about, and then we'll get to a 3 down, 3 up. We're going to do it flip-flop style because I'd like to end on a high note. Don't forget to check out Bedard and Giardi at Boston Sports Journal, $50 for the year. Tremendous coverage over there, of course. John Corrales working his tail off on the Celtics. Should be a very busy offseason for them. And don't forget our friends at Prizepicks. Download the Prizepicks app today. Use that code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. All right. We'll get to 3 down, 3 up, but first let me ask you, Drake Maye, from OTA practice number 1 that you saw to yesterday's minicamp second practice, how do you feel regarding the young quarterback?
I feel pretty good. I do think and I think yesterday's practice sort of showed it. He is going to have, some difficulties when the defense gets ramped up, but I think it's going to be really good for him because I do think this defense is going to be really good, and the better he plays against this defense, the quicker he plays, it's going to be better for him. I will say, Nick, yesterday, after, I was basically like over the moon about Drake Maye and the previous 2 practices that were open to us. And we talked about how it's pretty much become apparent that when Drake Maye is being decisive, well prepared, knows what he's getting, like he plays fast. We don't talk about the hitch. We don't talk about, him being indecisive, any of that stuff. When the defense is a little bit tougher, he's not sure who's going to be open or what the coverage is. Then there were a couple times yesterday where I noticed the hitch, where I was just like, where he's just kind of like, you could see him thinking and whatever. So I think he's made a lot of improvement. I still think there's a ways to go for him, but I'm excited about what he's going to be able to do, especially the more time that he spends with Josh McDaniels.
Same question, but this time for Will Campbell.
I've been impressed for the most part with Will Campbell. He had a false start. Just about everybody, I think, on the offensive line did yesterday. There were no officials, so it didn't get flagged, but I saw Will definitely flinch. I think he's done a really nice job. I think that his mind and study habit is going to be a huge asset for him and might offset some of his physical limitations. But he's another guy I can't wait to see with pads on, and then we'll really get an idea of his future and what he's capable of.
All right. So the next time these guys will be on the field will be training camp, and we figured it'd be the perfect time to do a little 3 down, 3 up to look at the OTA practices, the minicamp, as we get ready to get into training camp. So let's start, Greg, with going into training camp from what you've seen the past few weeks. Give me your 3 down.
So I'm going to start with some of the draft picks from last year. But I will say Layden Robinson would probably be my number 1 down. I think physically that he's certainly capable of it. We saw flashes of it last year, but it seems to me that he has plummeted down the depth chart. He's basically getting run with like the 3rd team offensive line. To me, that's a signal that he's not getting it the way the coaches would like him to. So Robinson would be number 1. I'm going to put Marte Mapu number 2. Can't make the club in the tub. I mean, it's just been a consistent thing for him. since he's been here. And let me see. I'm just trying to think if there's anybody else like an outlier type of person that I think I'm going to go probably Jaheim Bell, the tight end. He's had a couple of rough practices. It looks like the undrafted guy who basically like they have the exact same body type, G. Scott, has really come on and got a bunch of balls yesterday. So I would say Jaheim Bell would be my number 3.
I was writing down a name. I got it wrong. I'm trying to put it up there. If you could read it.
I also mentioned Caden Wallace. I mean, for this guy to go from 3rd round pick to, I guess they don't really want to see him at tackle, that they put him inside at guard. Like they couldn't put anybody else at guard and get him reps. Like Nick, do you think if they were high on him, his potential at tackle, wouldn't they sort of keep him there and not move him to like left guard during mandatory minicamp? I don't know. I just thought that was really odd.
I would think so, but who knows? The offensive line shifting with that left guard competition. So much is going on right now.
Let me also add Javon Baker to that. Another guy who to me is slipping down the depth chart and getting fewer and fewer opportunities.
All right, I can't find it now. But as you were talking before you got to your 3rd guy, I showed it to the people on YouTube watching the video. As you were talking, I wrote down in big letters Baker for Baker. I thought you were going to say Javon Baker. And then you said Jaheim Bell. I was excited because you said Ja, and I said Ja. I thought I was going to nail it. But yeah, Baker certainly seems like he is well on the outside looking in. All right, let's end it on a high note. Give us your 3 up.
I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez, number 1. I thought he had a sensational offseason. I think he looks terrific. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I'm going to say Pop Douglas. I think that as the offseason sort of went along, he became more and more of a popular target for Drake Maye. Pop looks like he's excited about the offense and his role in it. So I thought that was really good. And let me give you somebody from on the defensive side of the ball, or somebody else from the defensive side of the ball. Who was I going to say? I had somebody in mind. Keion
White, Williams, Spillane.
Yeah, Keion White. Keion White is a guy who I thought had a beast of an offseason and is primed for big things this year.
All right, Gonzalez, Pop, and White. 3 young guys. Sounds good to me. All right, we are donezo for the rest of the week. Hopefully you all enjoyed this. Greg has a little bit of vacation time coming up, so we might be back with you later next week. It depends. It's a scheduling thing. It's a little fluid. But Greg's going to get a little R&R with the family before he starts the grind of training camp. So we will be back at some point later in the week next week. Until then, be well and be safe.